Hey there guys, Engiminer back with a tutorial. This one is water, and what has it ever done for us, eh? Romans disliked it, they didn't do anything for us either, so we got rid of them. However, water is a little more useful than that. It does some pretty peculiar things sometimes, especially when you're not expecting it. So I think I'm just going to go over the very basics, like I did with redstone. So first of all, a water source block or pseudo source block, I will explain what one of those is later, will create water which will travel 8 blocks, including itself. So, we start off here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the water stops at the edge of that block. That's simple. Water cannot flow through any solid block. So if we create a barrier here, and then put that there, the water cannot flow through it and has to go around it. And you see it does curl back on itself. What happens is water will travel in every direction unless certain things happen, which I'll show you over there. And so in that case what they do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so it comes back on itself. So that works with water. Water can be created. You can create what's called an infinite water source. Many people use these a lot. What happens is from a source block, another water source block can be created if it's being filled by 2 source blocks. You see the water becomes still. That indicates that it is now a source block. So for instance, if we've got this little L shape, this is the smallest infinite water source you can make, because what happens is you can take water out of this position. I'm putting a block here to simulate removing it from a bucket because I'm in creative, so I can't actually do that. Do that, and it refills because there's a source block there and a source block there. They flow into here. That resulting space is being filled by 2 source blocks, so it becomes a source block itself. This isn't normally used in an L shape like this, especially unless you're incredibly strapped for space, because of course it's not very useful, because if I take out the water from here, it doesn't fill. So what we do, I have to refill it. So what you do is you create it as a square, and then you can remove water from any one of these, and it will refill. All you've got to be careful of is if you're on a multiplayer server, you may take it out, and if you've got 2 buckets, you may take out water so quickly that the server can't fully update the water source before you. Sorry, I have to fill this bit. Before you actually manage to get all of your water. So that's that. That's infinite water. It's water creation and how far water will flow. Now, water creates a pseudo source block at the base of any position where it falls. If water manages to fall, what will happen is it will do this. It'll go in every direction it can to fall, and it creates these 4 pseudo source blocks. I call them pseudo source blocks because they're created by falling water, because they're not actually source blocks. You see, if I take this away, all of the water disappears because there's nothing supplying them. However, of course, because I've got this pseudo source block here, 8 tiles distance actually takes me 1 further out. You can tell that because the water has gone 1 further out at the base, starts in these 4 instead of here, so of course it goes further. That's not that complicated. Now next, water will take the quickest path it can to travel downwards. However, will only recognise a drop if it is 6 blocks, including from the source block. See here, I'm not sure why this edge is lower down. It just is. See here, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's a drop. If I was to now remove that source block, so you can see it created from the start, this is the 6th block marked by the red. If I make the drop on the 7th, the water when it's created doesn't recognise the drop. You see it spreads out in every direction it can and drops on the 7th. The same occurs for a drop on the 8th block. It just doesn't see it. So I'll put that back there. Now, interestingly, water will only change direction, as in this will only spread out if it's updated. So you actually have to force a block update here. So as you can see, I have got this stream that just goes right down the middle, and actually you can force it to go all the way to 8 in a straight line, completely unobstructed, and that's because you've utilised the fact that this water block is the one that's actually supplying everything. So unless you force a block update by updating a block next to it, or above it, or underneath it, you can't do it underneath because otherwise it wouldn't have gone there, it will actually not go anywhere. You see, you do that, you update the block, and it updates where it flows. In the same system, unfortunately, if you then try and repair the damages, if you had a system working, delete a block here and force an update on that block again, it won't update, and it won't just stream down there. One thing I've not checked is if you do this and place a source block here, you can force an update on the block by deleting the block underneath it, and it doesn't do anything. See, it's still flowing down, but it's also flowing this way. And if we delete the block underneath it, and then extend that, it forces an update on this block, which is peculiar, because you get this funky ass pattern. I don't see any use to something like this, but it's there. And now in actual fact, in order to reset everything, you have to reset everything. Now, there are certain blocks that will and will not stop water. A solid block, so this counts as stone, wool, ores, they will stop water. Certain solid blocks that you may not have realised were solid count as jack-o'-lantern, pumpkin, sponge, cactus, melons, and other things. Here is a selection of items that will also stop solid blocks, regardless of whether or not they actually count as solid. The head of a piston, when it's extended, will stop water, so will an actual piston itself, but when the piston is retracted it does count as a solid block. So this as a translucent block will stop water. A trapdoor, whether it is expanded or not, I believe will stop water. I haven't actually tested that one, but I'm fairly sure. Half slabs, fences, iron or wooden, cakes, stairs, and beds will also stop water. TNT will stop water as long as it counts as a solid block. So we're going to go way over here, because I don't want to make my world all ugly. So that now counts as a solid block. It will stop water flowing. I'll just set up this to make the water flow in a direction we can choose. There. You see this? The water stops. However, as soon as you ignite it, it ceases to be a solid block, and the water will flow through it. That's a useful trait for TNT. It makes TNT cannons possible, because of course TNT will not damage anything if it's fully immersed in water, which of course means you can have lots of TNT in a row where the water flows through, and that'll make that possible. I'm just going to quickly sleep in the bed. Can I get to the bed? I can get in the bed. That's brilliant. Anyway, yep. So that's things that will and will not stop water. There's a load of other things that won't stop water. Mushrooms, roses, rails, any form of redstone, so that's the repeaters, actual redstone, redstone torches, things like that. They will not stop water. They will be broken. However, actually what will happen with your redstone is it will pop off the ground as if you broke it yourself. Items broken by water will just cease to be on the surface and will come off as if you broke it normally. So that works. Oh, it's clever. I didn't realise the AI did that. It appears that the AI runs skeleton back into the water. Anyway, so yeah, that's really basic stuff. One thing that water does not, or one thing that water does destroy, is wheat. Wheat and mushrooms can all be harvested with water. I can't show you mushrooms. I may at some point show you mushrooms, but they're currently underground. So if you have a water source block here and a load of wheat here, it will plough the wheat for you. It won't plough the soil, it won't hydrate it, because of course it's the block above the soil, which can't hydrate the soil. Actually has to be at the same level in order to do that. However, what it will do is harvest all the wheat for you. It gives you the same amount of wheat and seeds, so there's actually no disadvantage to harvesting with water as opposed to doing it manually. It's majorly quicker. I've got loads of spawns stuck in holes I've made with TNT. I did a bit of experimentation with TNT. But anyway, so that's that really. Water, of course, because it flows in the easiest direction, is actually reasonably easy to decide where it should go. If I've got, here we'll simulate a water trough occurring. If I've got a farm which stacks as so, and this is for instance the same as the one on my Let's Play, it uses this. Of course it doesn't stack exactly like this, there is more wheat farm over there, but for the sakes of the water falling down, this is what happens. Water takes the easiest route down, and I bust it. Right, water takes the easiest route down, and will flow all the way here. You see it reaches further on one side than the other? That's because it makes 2 pseudo source blocks, well 3, but that one has no effect. This one will flow 8 in a straight line, it'll go there, and this one will flow 8 in a straight line and reach there. That does mean that if you've got crops that you want to harvest, what you can do is if you stand here, you can harvest everything that reaches there. Again, that's the same in my Let's Play world. So that's useful for harvesting things. It's a lot quicker to pull a lever, release a piston, and let the water out than it is to go and do it by hand. You've also got much less chance of accidentally stepping on something and unploughing the grass, because you don't have to step on anything, so that's a bonus. Now, because the head of a piston will stop water, one thing you can do is if you have a water source block here, on top of this bit, so we'll actually make that for you. And I will place a redstone torch underneath here, and a piston. I'm not normally on this text pack, I'm using the OCD text pack for the purpose of these tutorials, because it makes life actually a hell of a lot easier for you to see what I'm doing. Oh, no, we don't want that way. There. This is Disco's texture pack. It's absolutely amazing for seeing how things work. I don't like it particularly on my Let's Play world because it makes trees look really weird, as far as I'm concerned, but other than that, it's brilliant. So what we do is we make, I just want to add a repeater in here. No, I don't even need a repeater. Wire, there we go. Okay. It makes explaining things really easy. So what happens is, I'm going to block up this, oh no, I won't block it up. I will just show you, for instance, how we can work this out without actually having to release the water. We've got one source block, that'll drop, no, that will just continue, so we'll have 2 places, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so the water will stop on this block. And what I'll do is I'll actually leave it open to show you that I trust my maths, and you can all laugh if I get it wrong. So, there we go, see? What happens, I simply applied charge to a NOT gate, piston retracted, and all that goes. Yeah, it's a very simple system. You do that, and for instance we'll go, and let's throw these in the water. Your drop occurs, and it comes down here. And then you can collect it, or your wheat or whatever. Other things that don't let water pass through, well, don't let water pass through, but will let items pass through, which is really useful, especially if you're making, say, a trap where you need the water to flow, because a chicken will float, and you're making an egg farm. that's mighty useful. Because chickens will float up on the top, you can have them up there, and then you have no issues with your chickens falling down, and all your eggs can be whisked away by another water stream, or you can just have it so you can run all the way underneath. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's now where the water will get to. And because it can't flow through this sign, because it takes up the whole block, it can't get out here either. I hope. I'll look stupid if it does. So you look at that. There we go. And you get this, which is commonly called a water blade. And actually delete that block and that one. Oh, pretty. Right. You create this water blade. I'm not sure what's happening here with the overlap. Go on, Disco, get on it. Your stuff is awesome, but your texture pack interacts with itself in a weird way. Anyway, so you get this, source block flows all there. Chickens will stay up here. They'll hop out if they can, but if you enclose the system, they'll stay in here. They'll flow with the water, so they will get trapped if you put something here. Oh. Until they begin to get so many that they actually begin interacting with each other. If you just put this thing here, they will all actually flow down to that end. If you're carrying wheat, of course, that changes everything, because my word, do they want food. So, we'll have a look from down here. So yeah, the water flows here. I can go right the way underneath it. That doesn't make a difference, which is cool. If you have chickens, you'll need to block that up, but I don't have chickens at the moment, so yeah, that's how that works. You get a water blade. It's quite cool. Items will get through it. Some creatures that float won't. Not all creatures will just float. A lot of them try, but not all of them can. I guess it depends how resilient they are and how much they want to get to you. Mobs now with their new AI can actually fight the current of water. Makes mob farms a little harder. Not that much. It just means they need to want to get to you, which isn't difficult. So yeah, that's what water can do for you in terms of items and floating mobs. Now, other things it can do, of course, it can direct a mob. If a mob wants to go to you, it can push it, which is good. But of course, you all know that the water will create another pseudo source block if it flows down. So one option, if your water doesn't go far enough, if I try not to use the bone, is you can dig down and it'll go further. Every time you dig down, you extend it by 1, which is brilliant. However, not all mobs can be pushed down. If you've got a cave spider farm, that doesn't work. Try and push a mob down, it will disagree and it'll just climb up a wall, and that is not what you want for a cave spider farm. So what we can do is we can use a few transparent blocks and use the way that water interacts through transparent blocks. It's a little weird that it does, but water interacts. You can use any kind of steps for this, but you place that at the end. There's a sign here, and then by placing blocks on either side. I'm only placing these here because otherwise water will spill, and I don't like that. Then what you can do is you can place another source block here, and that will flow off on its merry way. But as you can see, this stream is actually pushing up into this one. It's a little weird that it happens, but it works for mobs, and they'll just get pushed over. Now, it won't work for items. Items sink in water, so that sucks, but it works for mobs, and they will happily just walk on up. They won't drown, because they're the same height as you. Well, cave spiders, but they float on the water anyway, so they're actually small enough that if you've got a cave spider farm, you can just do that, and they won't drown, because half the block is enough for them to breathe, apparently. So, yeah, that's moving things with moving mobs with water. Another thing you can do to move mobs is to make a shaft that will move mobs. I should have prepared this earlier, I apologise. I will next time have a battle plan ready. So, we will put aside... Oh, what we'll do is we'll start as if we've just moved the mobs in. Yeah? So. And then I may show it to you in action, because I'm kind of like that. Note that the interaction here doesn't actually depend on how tall this block is when it interacts. As you can see, it works with the smallest block it can be, and it works with one that's pretty big. So, the only restriction is that it cannot be... what can't it be? Tongue-tied. It cannot be when there's no water. So I placed the stair block here on the block. This was the end of the water. This was 8 blocks. This was the 9th block, and it still works. If you place it on the 10th block, nothing happens. Zip, nada. Other thing you can't do is place the stair block, of course, in the source block, because that's in the source block and it'll delete the water. Right, so what happens is mobs will try not to drown instinctively. They will swim to the surface if they're not tracking the player. This means you can make a mob evator. It will bring mobs up very quickly in one space, so if you're making a falling trap, this is ideal. It's not so useful for something like cave spiders, because, well, cave spiders will go up and then they will lose track of the player, and they won't take fall damage, because they won't just climb down the wall for you. So they'll stop tracking you and then get stuck at the top, which is completely useless. What you can do is you can use a mob evator for drowning damage. You don't need these signs here. You can replace them with those blocks. This one does need a sign, because of course it's actually made by it's using the stairs. So what we'll do is we'll do this. We'll pretend we're a mob. We'll go in, and you'll hit here, and you'll instinctively try not to drown. The mob will jump, which will of course push it into the next block. It'll go up. It'll reach here, and it'll be, oh jolly well, I'm trying to swim up, but I can't, because I've hit the top, but I'm swimming up because otherwise I'll drown, and then it drowns, which is kind of ironic, because the whole reason it swam up was to not drown. Mobs, even with their new AI, don't avoid that. It's useful for a drowning trap if you just want items, for instance. What you can do, I believe you can replace that with any... yeah, you go. You can actually replace that stairwell with any translucent block, so half slabs, or signs, or trapdoors, or ladders, or whatever, and that'll still work. The only reason a lot of people use half slabs is because it stops the mob actually just standing on this space. I don't think it actually causes an issue with their AI, or they may just stand it, because if anything another mob will bump into them, but I think it's still... I just use staircases really. So, lost my train of thought. I don't know why I'm putting signs here. Like that. Damn it, come on sign. There we go. Anyway, that's how that works really. There isn't much to it. A sign placed on another sign will still stop water spawning through it. So if you do that, and then... oh, come on. No. Right. If you've spawned water here, and it falls on the sign, it will still split, because this sign, even though it isn't on the normal sign, does take up the whole block. So, that's useful. Anyway, so that's pushing mobs it can do. It'll push mobs in a straight line, it'll push mobs up. One thing I have seen people do is, instead of having this system here, you can merely place a sign here and place another source block to push mobs. That'll work if you've got big mobs, because they won't get stuck here and they'll move on here. If you've got a spawner, this is a lot more resource friendly. If you're having to move them great distances, you probably shouldn't, because you've got a spawner. And if a mob bumps into another one here, because unless they fall on each other, they can't occupy the same space, then they will push themselves further forward. However, it does mean if you then turn off your trap, you will most likely have a mob left in the system. So that's no good. So far this tutorial, what we've done, we've covered water itself, how far it goes. We've covered water interacting with drops and creating a pseudo source block. Remember, a pseudo source block is one created by falling water. In terms of calculating how far the water goes, it does count as a full height block and a source block, but if you destroy the actual source block, it won't stay. We've actually gone through creating genuine source blocks, so being filled by 2 other source blocks. We've covered the fact that it can push certain things. It will push items. We've gone into the fact what can stop it, what can't. Told you about TNT. Water will prevent TNT from damaging things. I did mention it earlier, I think. Apologies if I didn't, but I'm mentioning it now. So that works. We've gone through the fact that it'll harvest for you. It will move mobs in various different ways, and it will moisturize, I think is the actual term that Minecraft uses. It'll moisturize any harvested farmland from a certain distance away. Check the Minecraft wiki for that, but I'm fairly sure it is 8 blocks away. It'll moisturize as long as the system is on the same level as the water. I will show you on my Let's Play world where my actual water blocks are for the process of moisturizing the soil, because of course it makes it grow quicker, so that's beneficial. So that's that, guys. I will be shortly releasing a secondary redstone system. As you can see, I've got a lot of redstone going on. I do quite enjoy stuff like that. A lot of it works. It makes systems automated, and that's brilliant. So I will next time bring out a tutorial. I think the next one I was going to bring out is logic gates. If anyone has anything other than logic gates that they want to see, particularly, or if I've got any